Hi, Matt Betty again from Complete Wealth. Today we thought we'd do a quick video on some of the things that people need to look out for, especially with a lot of these new government stimulus initiatives going on at the moment. We've got a lot of people who are getting contact and getting correspondence from, departments and organisations they might not normally be familiar with sort of dealing with. So we're seeing potentially a lot of fraud and scam on the rise. So to talk about this, I've got Christopher Sutherland here with me again. Christopher from Complete X, our business consulting business. And so because this is essentially a business system sort of issue, I thought I'd go straight to the man himself. So welcome, Christopher.
Good day, Matt.
So obviously we've got a lot of, the world's a very interesting place at the moment for a whole host of reasons, but we're getting a lot of government announcements, a lot of government support. There's a lot of issues for businesses, for individuals of all different sort of shapes and sizes. And so while most of this stuff's going to be delivered predominantly through, say, the ATO and Department of Human Services, a Centrelink scenario, they might be areas that people aren't necessarily that familiar with sort of dealing with, right? So that creates an opportunity for, an intelligence gap or an information gap about what sort of practices these organisations might normally do. And that then opens up an opportunity for scammers and for, people committing frauds to sort of take advantage of that and say, okay, well, how can I get your personal information? How can I make you behave in a way that allows me to essentially take money off you? So we're going to look at a few of those examples today. So what are the main ways that people get sort of suckered in, if you like, or sort of trapped by this type of activity?
Yeah, so we've got a few points to go through. Let's cover some basics, I thought, first off. So we want to make sure that your computer and devices are up to date. This is just some of the best practices.
So when you say up to date, you mean the sort of the software updates that they routinely sort of come through with?
Correct, yeah, whether it's Mac or Windows. You want to make sure that you're on the latest version, because generally they've got the patches applied and they're aware on, the latest holes in the system. So so you want to keep them up to date, and then also you want to have some sort of device security. So that's obviously both malware and antivirus software. Protecting your computer.
So that software that's sort of running in the background to see if there's any activity on your computer that seems a bit unusual, right? Is this because of malware is things like little computer programs that infect your computer and access information on your hard drive or create portals for people to sort of come in and get control of your computer and information. Yep.
And also obviously with the antivirus, some of those softwares have integration with your web browser, so they'll help you out in terms of looking if website links are safe and whether web pages are secure. The next bit we want to talk about is the phone calls. Obviously, a lot of people get spam phone calls. Currently, but we might see a rise in the spam calls that are going on, or the different types of calls that you might get now. People claiming to be from a set area, asking for information from you.
So from your bank or from a particular government department. I know the ATO is one that is often sort of cited. People ring up claiming to be from the tax office, and in fact I know unfortunately a few people have been caught up in those sorts of scams where there was one a little while ago where they were sort of contacting people and saying, hey, you owe $3,000 in tax and you need to pay it straight away, and in fact what they would do is say, you need to pay these in gift vouchers, and so with a JB Hi-Fi and places like that. And so you'll find now, actually go into a lot of those stores, there'll be a sign on the door actually saying, hey, by the way, you never pay your tax bill in gift vouchers, right? So, and they would try and target a lot of people, especially recent immigrants, students, foreign students, a lot of these sorts of people who don't necessarily understand our system. And so it might seem very obvious sort of scam for many people who are like, okay, well, I wouldn't fall for that sort of thing. But I guess the point is that there's an information gap there. They're relatively new to the country or new to the system and haven't been taxpayers before. They don't know. You get that sort of scary, you're going to get deported and thrown out of the place. Similar scenario with this is that, people might not be used to dealing with, Centrelink or the tax office in some of these sort of ways. And therefore it's, the scammers are going to be sort of looking at ways that they can convince you to give them information that you wouldn't normally be open to.
Yeah, that's for sure. So one of the things we want to note here is if they've called you, ask them, some clarifications. Have a look at the phone number that they're calling on, and if it sort of seems out of the ordinary, and you want to protect yourself, an extra measure you could take is to call them back and or verify that phone number on their site, see what number they're calling from you. And you can also just call them back and say, hey, give me a reference number or a ticket number that they're calling you on about, and call them back and call. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to spend an hour or 2 hours talking to Centrelink or ATO or whatever.
So I guess that's the downside, isn't it? That especially with some of these organisations are pretty busy at the moment. But it's fair to say that it's very rare for many of these organisations to call you looking for significant personal information. So the first point is that they've called you, right? And look, it's happened to me in the past where I've had a phone call from my bank sort of saying, ringing me and then saying, first thing we've got to do is identify you. And my response to that is, you rang me, right? It's my phone number. It's my mobile number. You rang that. If you are from where you say you are, you tell me something about me to prove to me who you are. Otherwise, I'll call you back. Now, I've actually had that phone call and it turned out it really was the bank and they weren't willing to divulge any information, which is probably a good thing. So it was a little bit inconvenient, but that's a much safer approach than for me to start saying, okay, well, here's a bit of my personal information to prove I'm who I am when they've contacted me. So, the downside is, it might be a legitimate call, but much better legitimate call. That means you've got to sort of sit on hold for an hour or so that you could have avoided them ringing you, but that reference number will also generally help you accelerate the inquiry when you go back to them, right?
Yeah. All right. We talked about this the other day on another video, website forms and applications. So we've got an example here. When you're on a website and you're entering in some information, one of the first things to look at is what type of website and URL that you're on. So the first thing to look at is so some web browsers have a green padlock or a green area with a HTTPS. It means the site is secured as opposed to the one listed here at the bottom, the regular HTTP. And then obviously look at the full URL and try to have a look at what link you've clicked on or what page you've landed on to see if it's a .gov website or .gov.au website versus a .com that might seem a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, so that's a really important point, that the place you want to end up has got to have the right URL. So typing it in is a good way to ensure that's the case. And the S in this case basically just means secure, right? It's a secure site. So make sure that S is there. Otherwise, you don't have any guarantee that the website you're going to is, first of all, is the right website, because most of these sites would be secure websites. But also the fact that the advantage of a secure website is any interaction with that website's also, the data's much more protected than just essentially plugging data into the internet, which might be able to be intercepted as well.
Yep. And then we come back to the final point, which is emails. So both you and I have seen some emails even the last few days on the rise here, specifically targeting the coronavirus and the government stimulus package. So I thought we'd go through a couple of examples and just talk about them and what to look for and what to be aware of.
Yep.
So this here's an email one of my clients got and forwarded on to me. And it was actually semi-well done in terms of it used the client's business name in several parts of this email from the from address, even though the actual from email address is a .co.uk random email address, and sort of made it look like that this email came from their HR department and try to get my client to click on the links or the attachments. So semi well done here, but it's what you need to look at is something that I'm expecting. That's the first thing. Who's it from, and can I verify that email address? And I know we'll go through some examples with what you've got about hovering over links and things like that. So you need to look at the actual email address it's coming from, so that people can copy and look like it's come from a legitimate email, but then when you hover over it or you dive into a little bit deeper, it's actually a very spammy type email address.
Yeah, so I guess the really important thing is make sure you don't actually click on anything, right? So we'll have a look at the in sort of the hovering sort of technique, but don't click on anything. Certainly don't open any attachments or whatever, because that's really where you now start to open. So far your computer is most likely to be still reasonably safe. The email sort of landed, but you haven't sort of activated anything in most cases. So the trick here is not to click on a link unless you know that link is safe. Yeah.
And then we'll come through an example here that you've received.
Yeah, so I got this one. I'm president of a local mountain bike club, and as that being a community organisation, we don't have the same sort of internet email system that we do say somewhere like Complete Well. So we get a lot more spam, scam sort of emails through that address than we get, but we still get them through Complete Wealth. There's still some very good, very sophisticated ones we see make it through. But also partly because because I can be publicly seen in that role. There's already information about me, on my LinkedIn profile and lots of places that backgrounds can be gathered. So you have to be really, really careful from that perspective. But this one was sent to me at my Cork email address, and you can see here it looks pretty legit. Like it's from Suncorp, right? So it's at suncorp.com, and it's from alerts at Suncorp. So now I don't sure why it's from Suncorp Internet, but it's clearly trying to pretend it's from Suncorp as in the bank. So and then it's basically saying, hey, there's something to do with my banking account or something. And so what I've done here is I've just sort of hovered over the link, and you can see here that there's that example you're talking about. So this is now going to send me to, and they're very clever, they've still end it with suncorpbank.htm, right, to make it look like the ending of the address is legit, even if I was to sort of hover over that. But I guess the bit that matters here is that first bit there where it says .com.br.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the actual website address. So BR Brazil, I'm not even sure what the country designation
Brazil,
is. Yeah. So that's the domicile of the domain. And this could be anything, but again, it's a secure website, so you can see by the HTTPS. So again, whatever I give them, they're going to information or whatever that link leads to is going to send me straight to a very, very bad place. There's no question. So you can see just by hovering over that link, you can sort of pop up the address and see this is clearly inconsistent with, first of all, suncorp.com isn't Suncorp, the bank's URL. So you could go and check that via their website.
Yeah, and also when I have a look at it, I just have a look at one other thing that's sort of given it away is the copyright sign at the bottom left. So I've got an error with a character. So that's sort of it could be there, but it's
a major financial institution's likely to get their
footers
layout
right. Yeah.
And this was another one. So this is another one again I got through. This one's a bit more obvious. So you can see here, this one's trying to be MyGov. So you can see here that, again, it's calling itself MyGov, but again, you can see from the email address it's saol.com, wherever that is. And then again, if I hover over that where it wants me to read now, the link it actually wants me to sort of click on, you can see here it's just some random
.com.
Yeah, so that again is certainly going to take me to a very dark place, no doubt. But again, this is a very poor version of it, but here's one that's sort of saying, hey, MyGov is obviously going to be all the rage in Australia at the moment. So somewhere in the world there's going to be a bunch of scammers knowing that and starting sending out MyGov-orientated emails. And some of them will be a lot more sophisticated. They'll have logos on them. They'll have really good layouts. So they'll use good English. So they certainly get a lot more sophisticated. But the trick here is by, sort of hovering over and looking for those addresses, you can start to see how legitimate it might be.
Yeah.
And also, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the whole point of MyGov is that it gives you a secure portal for the government to communicate with you. So if you get an email from MyGov that's asking for any major or telling you anything significant, that's a sign. If you get an email saying, go into your MyGov, there's something we want to tell you, that's the sort of email you're going to get from MyGov.
Yeah.
Not tell us this or we need this information. Yep.
Yeah, I'll click here.
Yep.
Yeah. So with all this, obviously, if our clients are receiving emails and it's pretending to be us, for example, obviously they can give us a call or send us a separate email asking us about it and just contact us and just to confirm. That's always a good idea for them.
Yeah, and also consistency, right? So most organisations are going to try and pretend to be, say, someone like Complete Wealth. They're not, generally speaking, going to spend a lot of time finding out what our emails look like because they're not necessarily going to have access to them. So they might chuck a logo in, or they might chuck some bits and pieces in, but they're not going to know our email format most likely. So first of all, again, you're going to get emails that look a little bit like this that are going to seem inconsistent with if you're normally getting emails from us. So that's also a bit of a sign as well. So if there's some inconsistency with that, but again, if there's any doubt, you can use that sort of hover scenario, or definitely give us a call and we'll tell you whether we've sent you an email that we want you to open.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so that's all the points in terms of what people should be made aware of, just keep an eye out for increased levels of spam, especially around coronavirus stimulus packages and business initiatives that the government are launching.
So hopefully you found that useful. Just some quick examples there, and again, this is something you need to be vigilant on all devices at all time. But we are already seeing a bit of a spike in that because the opportunity obviously is there to target people who won't necessarily be as familiar with the organisations that they're dealing with. As always, you can rest assured that any emails we actually send you and the links on those are safe, including the one that got you to this video. So, but if you do have any questions or you have any doubts, by all means contact us and let us know. And if there's anything else you'd like to see, let us know and we'll put that one together for you as well. Until next time, thank you.